I kept only one thing to myself, my FAFSA pin. He called it attitude, then threw me down the porch steps. My mother stood in the doorway, cold as ice. You brought this on yourself. The next afternoon, a call from financial aid rang out. We need to verify. Someone is trying to change your PIN. That call opened a hornet's nest. If your family used your name to borrow money, while forcing you to share your future, would you stay silent or burn down every door they're hiding behind? My name is Nora Hayes, and this is the story of how a simple financial aid PIN became the thread that unraveled my family's web of lies, fraud, and betrayal. The night it happened, I'd just finished a 12-hour shift at Northline Systems in Belridge, Ohio. My shoulders ached from hunching over help desk tickets. My eyes burned from staring at screens, and all I wanted was to collapse into bed. But when I pushed open the front door of my childhood home, Dale was waiting. Dale Whitaker, my stepfather, 6'2" of beer gut and bitterness, parked in his recliner like a toad on a throne. The TV blared some reality show about repo men, but his bloodshot eyes tracked me as I tried to slip past toward the stairs. Hold up there, princess. His voice had that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize over the years. The tone that meant trouble was brewing. We need to talk. I stopped, keys still in my hand, 24 years old, paying rent, buying my own groceries, yet somehow still trapped in this house like a teenager. It's late, Dale. Can this wait until... No, it can't wait. He hauled himself out of the chair with a grunt. Your mother and I need your FAFSA information. The PIN specifically. My stomach clenched. I'd been taking night classes at Beacon State University, slowly working toward my computer science degree while keeping my day job. Financial aid was the only reason I could afford it. Why would you need my FAFSA PIN? Family financial planning, he said, like I was stupid for asking. We're restructuring some things, optimizing the household finances. Need to see what you're bringing in from those grants. From the kitchen doorway, my mother appeared, Lorna Hayes. She'd kept my father's name even after marrying Dale. Her face was carefully neutral, the expression she wore when she didn't want to pick sides, but I knew whose side she'd already chosen. Just give him the PIN, Nora, she said quietly. We're all family here. That's my personal financial information, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My student aid. It has nothing to do with household finances. Dale's face darkened. Everything under this roof has to do with household finances. You live here. Don't you eat our food. Use our electricity. I pay rent, I reminded him. $400 a month, remember, plus groceries. $400 doesn't cover shit, he snapped. Property taxes went up, insurance went up, everything's going up except my paycheck. We need to leverage every resource we've got, and that includes making sure we're maximizing aid opportunities as a family unit. I knew where this was going. I'd seen Dale's schemes before. The mysterious packages that arrived with my mother's name but went straight to his workshop. The credit card applications that somehow got lost after being filled out. The way certain bills showed up already opened, even though they were addressed to me. I'm not giving you my PIN, I said. The words hung in the air like a challenge. My mother's face went pale. Dale's went red. What did you just say? I said no. My financial aid is for my education. That's it. He took a step closer. I could smell the beer on his breath, see the broken blood vessels in his nose. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything we've done for you. Dale, my mother started, but he cut her off with a gesture. No, Lorna, I'm sick of this attitude. Miss Computer Expert here thinks she's too good for her family. Thinks she can just take and give nothing back. I pay rent, I repeated. I buy groceries. I help with utilities. What more do you want? I want that fucking PIN, he snarled. And while we're at it, you're gonna sign these papers for the house refinancing. As a co-signer, family helps family. That's when I saw the folder on the coffee table. Legal documents, loan applications, my name already typed in various fields, just waiting for signatures. No, I said again, stronger this time. Absolutely not. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Dale's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. I yanked back. He yanked harder. My keys clattered to the floor as we struggled. "You don't tell me no in my own house," he roared. I tried to pull away, but he was bigger, stronger, fueled by rage and alcohol. He dragged me toward the door, my sneakers squeaking against the hardwood. My mother pressed herself against the wall, watching, but not moving, not speaking. "You want to act like you're not part of this family," Dale growled. "Then get out." He wrenched open the front door and shoved me onto the porch. I stumbled, tried to catch myself on the railing, but my ankle turned. The edge of the top step caught my shoulder as I went down. A sharp crack of pain that took my breath away. I tumbled down 3 more steps before landing hard on the concrete walkway. For a moment, I couldn't move. My shoulder screamed. Blood trickled from where my chin had scraped concrete. Above me, Dale filled the doorway like a monument to rage. "You come back when you're ready to act like family," he said. "Until then, you're not welcome here." My mother appeared beside him. For one wild moment, I thought she'd help me, tell him he'd gone too far. Instead, she looked down at me with those cold, neutral eyes and delivered the words that cut deeper than any physical wound. "You brought this on yourself, Nora. All we asked for was cooperation." The door slammed shut. The porch light clicked off, leaving me in darkness. I lay there for a minute, maybe 2, waiting for the door to open again, waiting for my mother to come out, to help me up, to say she was sorry. But the house remained silent except for the muffled sound of the TV. Slowly, painfully, I got to my feet. My shoulder throbbed. My ankle felt swollen already. But worse than the physical pain was the clarity that descended like a cold rain. This was it, the line I'd always been afraid to cross. Once I walked away from this porch, I couldn't come back, not to the same life, anyway. I limped to my car, grateful I'd parked on the street instead of the driveway. My purse was still inside the house, but my car keys had been in my pocket. I kept an emergency 20 in the glove compartment and a change of clothes in the trunk habits from years of never knowing when I'd need to leave quickly. But where could I go? Most of my friends from high school had moved away. My coworkers were just that coworkers, not the kind of people you showed up to bleeding at 11 p.m. I sat in the driver's seat, engine running, trying to think through the fog of pain and adrenaline. Then I remembered Evan, my half-brother from my father's first marriage, 4 years older, working construction, living in a studio apartment in the industrial part of town. We weren't close. Family gatherings were awkward when your mother was the reason your father left his first wife, but Evan had always been decent to me. Neutral territory in the family wars. I drove carefully, shoulder protesting every turn of the wheel. Evan's building was a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and metal stairs. I climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked, hoping he was home, hoping he was alone. The door opened after a minute. Evan stood there in sweatpants and a worn Metallica t-shirt, his dark hair sticking up at odd angles. His eyes went wide when he saw me. "Jesus, Nora, what happened?" "Can I come in?" He stepped aside immediately. "Yeah, of course. Shit, you're bleeding." His apartment was small but clean. Weights in one corner, gaming setup in another, kitchenette along the far wall. He guided me to his couch and disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a first aid kit that looked like it had seen better days. "Hold still," he said, dabbing at my chin with antiseptic. "You want to tell me what happened?" I told him. The whole thing spilled out while he cleaned my wounds and wrapped ice in a dish towel for my shoulder. The pin, the refinancing papers, the fight, the fall, my mother's cold dismissal. Evan's jaw tightened with each detail. "That fucking asshole," he muttered. I knew Dale was a piece of shit, but this? "I can't go back," I said. "Not after this." "You shouldn't go back," he agreed. "You need to file a police report." I shook my head automatically. "It's not that bad. I just fell." "He pushed you down the stairs. Nora, that's assault. And this shit about the pin and making you sign loans, that's fraud. Or attempted fraud. Anyway, It's family stuff, I said weakly. The cops won't care. Evan set down the first aid supplies and looked me in the eye. You're 24 years old. You're not a kid anymore. This isn't family stuff. It's criminal behavior, and it's only going to get worse if you don't draw a line. I knew he was right. Deep down, I'd known it for years. But knowing and doing were two different things. I don't even have my purse, I said. My ID, my cards, everything's at the house. We'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight. You need to document this. He pulled out his phone. I'm taking pictures of your injuries, and first thing in the morning, we're going to the police station. I spent that night on Evan's couch, shoulder throbbing despite the ibuprofen he'd given me. I stared at the exposed ceiling beams and made a decision: no more. No more keeping quiet. No more protecting people who didn't protect me. No more being the good daughter who never caused trouble. Dale wanted my PIN because he wanted control over my finances, my future, my life. But that PIN was more than just access to student aid. It was the one thing I'd kept for myself, the one boundary I'd maintained. And I'd be damned if I'd let him cross it. The next morning came too soon. My shoulder had stiffened overnight, and the bruises had bloomed into purple-black flowers across my skin. Evan was already up, making coffee and Googling something on his phone. There's a process, he said without preamble. File the police report first. Then you can get an emergency protective order. After that, we worry about getting your stuff back. Evan. Don't argue with me on this. Nora, I've seen this movie before. His voice was grim. My mom went through it with my dad before he met yours. It starts with pushing, then it's hitting, then worse. You get out now, while you can still get out. 2 hours later, I sat in a gray interview room at the Belridge Police Department. Officer Martinez. A woman about my mother's age with kind eyes and graying hair at her temples. Took my statement. She photographed my injuries from multiple angles, measured the bruises, documented every detail. Has he been physically violent before? She asked. Not exactly. He's grabbed me, shaken me, but nothing like this. What about the financial coercion? Has he tried to access your accounts before? I thought about all the opened mail, the mysterious charges that appeared on my credit report last year, the way my tax refund had been delayed until Dale helpfully offered to look into it. Maybe, I admitted. I think so. Officer Martinez nodded like she'd heard this story 1,000 times. We see a lot of financial abuse in domestic situations. It's about control as much as money. You did the right thing coming in. She explained the process. They'd file charges for assault. I could petition for a protective order that would keep Dale away from me. If I suspected identity theft or fraud, I should also file a report with the Federal Trade Commission and freeze my credit. And you might want to contact your school's financial aid office, she added. Let them know someone might try to access your information without authorization. That sent a chill down my spine. In the chaos of the night before, I'd almost forgotten what started it all. Dale wanted my FAFSA PIN. What if he tried to get it another way? Evan drove me back to his apartment, protective order paperwork in hand. I borrowed his laptop and logged into my credit monitoring service, fingers shaking as I typed. 3 hard inquiries in the last 6 months that I didn't recognize, 2 new credit cards I hadn't applied for, thankfully denied, and there, buried in the alerts, a notation from 4 months ago auto loan application, cosigner required. Son of a bitch, I breathed. Evan looked over my shoulder. Is that? My information, as a cosigner on a car loan. Look at the dealer, it's where Dale bought his truck last year. But it says denied. Because I didn't actually sign it, but he tried. He fucking tried to forge my signature. The pieces were falling into place. Dale's sudden interest in my FAFSA wasn't random. He was in financial trouble, had been for months, and he was using or trying to use my information to dig himself out. I placed credit freezes with all 3 bureaus, changed every password I could think of, and set up 2-factor authentication on everything. Then, hands still shaking, I called Beacon State's financial aid office. Financial aid, this is Gregory speaking. Hi, my name is Nora Hayes, Student ID 448923. I need to report a potential security issue with my FAFSA account. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Ms. Hayes, actually, I'm glad you called. We have a note here to contact you. There was an attempted PIN change on your account yesterday evening that triggered our security protocol. The request came from an IP address that didn't match your usual login locations. My heart hammered. Yesterday evening, what time? Let me see. 11:47 p.m. The request was denied because it failed our verification requirements. But we wanted to verify with you directly. Did you attempt to change your PIN last night? No, I said. No, I didn't. Someone else tried to access my account. I've just filed a police report for a related incident. Gregory's tone shifted, becoming more serious. I see, Ms. Hayes. We're going to need you to come to our office in person as soon as possible. Bring government-issued ID and any documentation from the police report. We'll need to secure your account and possibly involve our fraud prevention team. Is my financial aid safe? I can't afford school without it. Your aid is secure for now, but we need to act quickly. Can you come in today? I looked at Evan, who nodded. Yes, I'll be there within the hour. Good. Ask for me directly, Gregory Winters, and Ms. Hayes. Don't share your new PIN with anyone, not family, not friends, no one. That information should be yours alone. I hung up feeling sick. While I'd been lying on Evan's couch, Dale had been trying to break into my FAFSA account. At 11:47 p.m., less than an hour after he'd thrown me down the stairs, the assault wasn't just about anger or control. It was a distraction. Maybe even a punishment for not cooperating with his plan. We need to go, I told Evan. This is bigger than I thought. The drive to Beacon State took 20 minutes. The financial aid office was in the administration building, all beige walls and fluorescent lights. Gregory Winters turned out to be a thin man in his 30s with worried eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Ms. Hayes, he said, ushering me into a private office. Thank you for coming so quickly. Can I see your ID? I handed over my driver's license, grateful I'd kept it in my car's glove compartment instead of my purse. He studied it carefully, compared it to something on his computer screen, then handed it back. Tell me what happened, he said. I gave him the abbreviated version: family member attempting to access my information without permission, currently under protective order. His frown deepened with each detail. The attempted access last night came from IP address 76.243.112.45, he said, turning his monitor so I could see. Does that look familiar? I stared at the number. How would I know? I'm not exactly memorizing IP addresses. Fair point, but we can trace the general location, a few clicks. It's registered to a residential internet service account in Belridge. Specifically, he pulled up a map. This area here, Maple Grove subdivision. My stomach dropped. That's my mother's neighborhood. That's the house I grew up in. Gregory nodded grimly. That confirms suspicious activity. Now, there's more. The person attempting to access your account also submitted a dependency override form via email about an hour before the PIN attempt. They claimed you were planning to update your FAFSA to reflect a change in family status. What, I never sent any email? The email came from an address that's not on file with us. norah@gmail.com. Is that yours? No, my email is nhayesbsu@gmail.com, the one I've used since freshman year. That's what we have on file, which is why this raised flags. He pulled up another screen. The dependency override form had an electronic signature that, well, honestly, it looks like someone traced over an existing signature. See these identical loops here and here? That's usually a sign of forgery. I stared at the signature on the screen. It looked like mine, but wrong. Like someone had tried to copy my handwriting from a sample. What were they trying to do with the override? Change your status from independent to dependent, listing Dale and Lorna Whitaker as the primary household. That would potentially allow them to access your information as legal guardians and could affect your aid calculation if they were trying to claim you as a dependent for their own financial benefits. But I'm 24, I've been filing independent taxes for 3 years, which is why the override was flagged. But if they'd succeeded in changing your PIN first, they might have been able to push through changes before you noticed. The scope of what Dale had attempted was staggering. This wasn't just about getting my PIN. He'd been planning to take over my entire financial aid profile, probably to either steal my aid directly or use my information for some larger fraud scheme. "What do I do now?" I asked. Gregory pulled out a stack of forms. "First, we're freezing your current FAFSA account and issuing you new credentials. Everything will be re-verified from scratch. Second, I'm recommending this case to our fraud prevention team and the Department of Education's Inspector General. Third, you'll want to file a complaint with the FTC about identity theft. And fourth," he paused, "you mentioned a protective order. Does your family know you're aware of what they tried to do?" "I don't think so. Everything happened so fast." "Good. Document everything. Save all emails. Take screenshots. Keep a paper trail. If they're attempting fraud using federal financial aid systems, this could become a federal case." I signed form after form, my injured shoulder protesting each movement. Gregory made copies of my police report, the protective order paperwork, and every piece of documentation I had. By the time I left, my FAFSA account was locked down tighter than Fort Knox, and I had a folder full of evidence that Dale's scheme went far deeper than I'd imagined. Evan was waiting in the parking lot, scrolling through his phone. "How bad?" he asked when I got in the car. "Bad. He tried to take over my entire financial aid account, forged signatures, fake emails, the works." "Jesus." He was quiet for a moment. "What's the next move?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hide, to pretend none of this was happening, but the anger that had been simmering since last night was growing stronger. Dale had crossed every line. My mother had stood by and let it happen. They'd tried to steal not just money but my future, my education, my independence. "Now we go to the bank," I said. "If Dale's been trying this hard to get at my FAFSA, I guarantee that's not the only iron he has in the fire." Tri-Summit Credit Union was a small regional bank where I'd had an account since high school. The branch manager, Mrs. Chen, knew my family by name, which made what came next even more uncomfortable. "I need to review all activity on my accounts," I told her. "And I need to know if anyone's tried to access my information or open new accounts in my name." She could see something was wrong, maybe the bruises, maybe the tension in my voice. "Of course, let me pull up your full profile." We went through everything: checking, savings, the small certificate of deposit I'd managed to build, all secure, all untouched. But then she frowned. "There's a notation here from about 4 months ago, a loan application that was started but never completed, for an auto loan with a cosigner." My blood ran cold. "Can you show me the application?" She turned the monitor toward me. There it was, my name, my social security number, my information as cosigner on a $45,000 truck loan. The primary borrower, Dale Whitaker. "I never agreed to this," I said. "I never signed anything." Mrs. Chen studied the screen more carefully. "The application was abandoned at the signature phase. Our loan officer noted that the signatures didn't match our records. See this note? Signature verification failed. Cosigner signature appears to be photocopied from rental agreement on file." Rental agreement. "From when you co-signed your apartment lease 2 years ago, we keep those on file for young adults building credit. Someone it looks like Mr. Whitaker, based on the login credentials, tried to upload that signature as verification for the loan." "That's fraud," Evan said flatly. "That's textbook fraud." Mrs. Chen's face was grave. "Yes, it is. We stopped the loan for exactly that reason, but the attempt itself is criminal. Ms. Hayes, I need to ask, do you want to pursue this officially?" Once I started down this path, there was no going back, but then I thought about Dale's face when he'd pushed me, my mother's cold dismissal, the systematic attempt to take over my life piece by piece. "Yes," I said, "I want to pursue it, all of it." What followed was another round of paperwork, fraud alerts, and evidence gathering. Mrs. Chen pulled records going back 2 years, finding 3 more attempts to add me as a co-signer or authorized user on various accounts, all rejected for signature discrepancies or failed verification. Each attempt corresponded with times I'd been away at work, at school, visiting friends. "He's been trying this for years," I said, stunned. How did I not know? Financial predators are often very clever about hiding their activities, Mrs. Chen said gently, especially when they're family members. They count on trust and access to personal information. By the time we left the bank, I had a file folder 2 inches thick: police reports, fraud documentation, financial aid security breaches, forged signatures. The picture it painted was clear. Dale had been systematically trying to use my identity to prop up his failing finances, and when I'd refused to give him my FAFSA PIN willingly, he'd simply tried to take it. "You need a lawyer," Evan said as we sat in his truck, surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal. "This is beyond DIY territory. With what money, everything I have goes to rent and school. Legal aid, then, or see if the university has resources. But Nora, you can't handle this alone." He was right. Again, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, then recognized the area code. Local. "You think you're smart, but you're just making things worse for everyone. Come home and talk like an adult." My mother, of course she'd gotten a new phone number to get around the protective order restrictions. I showed Evan the message. His face darkened. "Don't respond. Screenshot it and add it to the pile. She's violating the order by contacting you." "She's my mother," I said weakly. "No," Evan said firmly. "She's your abuser's accomplice. There's a difference." That night, I lay on Evan's couch again, but sleep wouldn't come. My phone sat silent on the coffee table. I'd blocked the new number, but I kept waiting for another attempt. My shoulder ached. My future felt uncertain. Everything I'd worked for, my degree, my independence, my carefully built credit, hung in the balance because 2 people who were supposed to protect me had decided I was worth more as a resource to exploit than a daughter to love. Around 2 a.m., I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop. If Dale had been trying to use my identity for loans, what else had he done? I started with Google, searching variations of my name, Dale's name, property records, business filings. What I found made my stomach turn. A DBA filing from 6 months ago. Whitaker Home Solutions, with a business address that matched my mother's house, the registered agent Dale Whitaker, but buried in the filing was a second name on the business checking account N. Hayes. "No," I whispered. "No fucking way." But there it was. Somehow, Dale had added me to a business I knew nothing about. I dug deeper, finding vendor accounts, equipment leases, even a small business credit card application, all listing N. Hayes as a partner or guarantor. The scope of it took my breath away. This wasn't just opportunistic fraud. This was a carefully constructed scheme to entangle my credit and identity so thoroughly with Dale's that extracting myself would be nearly impossible. Every failed loan attempt at the bank was just the tip of the iceberg. I screenshotted everything, my fingers shaking with rage. How long had this been going on? How many other accounts, applications, or obligations had he created in my name? By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't enough to just protect myself anymore. Dale had declared war on my future, and I was going to fight back with everything I had. "I need to go to the courthouse," I told Evan over coffee. "And then I need to talk to whoever handles federal fraud cases. This is bigger than local police can handle." Evan studied me over his mug. "You sure you're ready for that? Once the feds get involved, this becomes real. No taking it back. No family reconciliation." "They made that choice when they threw me down the stairs and tried to steal my identity," I said. "I'm just finishing what they started." The Belridge County Courthouse was old, all marble floors and echoing hallways. I found the records room and started pulling files. Business licenses, property records, court documents, anything with Dale's name or my mother's. What I found painted a picture of financial desperation dating back years. Liens on the house, judgments from credit card companies, A bankruptcy filing from 3 years ago that somehow hadn't included several debts that were now mysteriously assigned to Tan Hayes as a co-signer. "Can I help you find something specific?" The clerk, an older woman with silver hair, had noticed my growing pile of documents. "I'm trying to trace fraudulent use of my identity," I said. "Family member opening accounts in my name." Her expression softened. "Oh, honey, we see that more than you'd think. You want to check the UCC filings too. Sometimes they'll file fraudulent secured transactions to make it look like you owe them money." She was right. Buried in the Uniform Commercial Code filings was a document claiming I owed Dale $15,000 for household expenses and parental support, with my supposed signature granting him a security interest in any future earnings. "This is dated 2 months ago," I said. "I never signed this. If it's fraudulent, you'll need to file a correction statement. But honey, with this much documentation, you need the FBI, not just local police." The FBI. The word sounded surreal. This was my family, the people I'd eaten Sunday dinners with, spent Christmases with, but they'd stopped being family the moment they decided I was just a resource to exploit. I made copies of everything, the clerk waiving fees when she heard my story. By noon, I had a banker's box full of evidence. Evan helped me load it into his truck, whistling low at the weight of it. "Where to now?" he asked. "Federal Building. The FBI has a white-collar crime unit there." But my phone rang before we could leave. Gregory from Financial Aid. "Ms. Hayes, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been a development. We just received a call from someone claiming to be your mother, saying you're having a mental health crisis, and she needs emergency access to your financial aid information to help coordinate your care." "What?" I nearly dropped the phone. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. Of course, we have your security alert on file." But she was very convincing. Even provided what she claimed was a doctor's note about your supposed condition. We forwarded everything to our fraud team and the Inspector General, but I wanted you to know immediately. "Thank you," I managed. "Thank you for not falling for it. Ms. Hayes, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen every scam in the book, but this level of coordination, fake medical documents, elaborate backstories, this is sophisticated. Please be careful." I hung up feeling sick. They weren't going to stop. Every avenue I blocked. They'd try another. The desperation was escalating, which meant Dale's financial situation must be even worse than I'd discovered. "Change of plans," I told Evan. "We need to make a stop first." "Where?" "The house. I need to see what else they're hiding." Evan looked alarmed. "Nora, no. You have a protective order. You can't go near them." "I don't have to. The protective order says Dale can't come near me. It doesn't say I can't observe from a public street." It was a risk, but I needed to know what I was really dealing with. We drove to Maple Grove, parking 2 blocks away from my childhood home. Even from a distance, I could see things that hadn't registered before. The pile of lumber in the driveway new, expensive looking, a trailer attached to Dale's truck with commercial equipment, signs for Whitaker Home Solutions propped against the garage. "He's actually running a business," I said, "with my name attached to it." We watched for 20 minutes. In that time, 2 different trucks pulled up. Men in work clothes talked to Dale. Money changed hands. Receipts were written. Whatever Whitaker Home Solutions was, it was active, and I was legally tied to it without my knowledge or consent. "We need to go," Evan said nervously, "before someone sees us." But as we were leaving, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My mother, coming out to talk to one of the contractors. In her hand was a manila folder. Even from a distance, I could see my name on the tab. She handed it to the contractor with what looked like an apologetic smile. They were still using my information. Right now, even with protective orders and fraud alerts and everything else, they were still conducting business using my identity. "Drive," I told Evan. "Federal Building, now." The Federal Building's FBI office was intimidating all security checkpoints and serious faces, but when I explained why I was there, showing the protective order and fraud documentation, they took me seriously. Special Agent Rivera was younger than I'd expected. maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "This is extensive," she said finally, looking through my documentation. "The forged signatures alone would be enough for federal charges, but this business filing using your identity, the attempt to access federal financial aid systems, the UCC fraud, this is a pattern of racketeering." Racketeering. The word sounded like something from a mob movie. Pattern of criminal activity for financial gain. When it crosses state lines or involves federal systems like FAFSA, it becomes our jurisdiction. She pulled out additional forms. "I'm going to recommend this case to our Financial Crimes Task Force, but I need you to understand something once we open a federal investigation. We follow it wherever it leads. That might include charges against your mother, not just your stepfather." I thought about my mother handing over that folder, standing in the doorway while Dale threw me down the stairs, texting me to violate the protective order. "I understand," I said. "There's something else," Agent Rivera continued. "If they're this desperate and this organized, they might escalate when they realize you're fighting back. Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" "My brother's apartment." "Good. Stay there. Change your routines. Be unpredictable. And document any contact attempts, texts, emails, people following you, anything unusual." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number, another local area code. "You're destroying this family. All we needed was cooperation. Now Dale might lose the house. I hope you're happy." I showed Agent Rivera. She photographed it with her own phone. "Save that. Shows consciousness of guilt. They know what they did was wrong." The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, I was officially a witness in a federal fraud investigation. My family, what was left of it, was about to face the full weight of the United States government. Outside, Evan was pacing by his truck. "How'd it go?" "It's happening," I said. "Federal investigation. The whole thing." He pulled me into a careful hug, mindful of my injured shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Dad would be proud too. You're doing the right thing." I wanted to believe that, but as we drove away from the federal building, all I could think about was that folder my mother had handed over. My name visible on the tab. How many more folders were there? How many more contracts, applications, obligations with my name attached? The war for my identity had begun, and I was determined to win it, no matter the cost. That evening, back at Evan's apartment, I sat with my laptop and started the tedious process of unraveling every thread of my financial life. Credit reports from all 3 bureaus, bank statements going back years, every account I'd ever opened, every card I'd ever been issued. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. A utility account in my name at an address I'd never lived at a commercial property across town. Store credit cards I'd never applied for. Some with small balances that had been paid just enough to avoid detection. A cell phone plan with 3 lines, only one of which was mine. "How did I miss this?" I asked Evan, who was looking over my shoulder. "How did I not see what was happening?" "Because you trusted them," he said simply, "and they counted on that trust." My phone rang. Beacon State University's main number. My heart raced as I answered. "Ms. Hayes, this is Dr. Patricia Hoffman from the Provost's office. I understand you've been having some security issues with your financial aid." "Yes, that's right." "I'm calling because we've received multiple inquiries about your enrollment status and academic records from someone claiming to be handling a family medical emergency. They've been quite persistent, even calling department chairs directly." My stomach dropped. "I'm not having any medical emergency. That's part of the fraud I'm dealing with." "I suspected as much. We've placed additional security flags on all your records and notified campus police. But I wanted to make you aware that someone is actively trying to access not just your financial information, but your academic records as well." "Why would they want my academic records?" "If I had to guess. Looking for information they could use to impersonate you or answer security questions. We've seen similar tactics in identity theft cases. They might be trying to gather enough personal information to bypass security on other accounts." The call ended with promises of increased vigilance, but I felt exposed. Every system designed to protect me had become a potential vulnerability. Dale and my mother weren't just trying to steal money, they were trying to steal my entire identity, piece by piece. "We need to be smarter," I told Evan. "They know all my patterns, all my information. I need to change everything." Over the next 3 days, I became a ghost. New email addresses, new phone number. Every password changed to random strings stored in a secure manager. I even opened accounts at entirely new banks, transferring what little money I had to institutions where my family had no history. But they were escalating too. Evan's tires were slashed overnight. His boss received anonymous calls claiming Evan was using drugs on job sites. My supervisor at Northline Systems got emails from concerned family members about my mental instability and history of lying. "They're trying to isolate you," Agent Rivera explained when I reported the incidents. "Classic abuser tactic: cut off your support system, make you seem unreliable, force you back to them." "It won't work," I said firmly. "No, but it means they're getting desperate. The task force is moving quickly. We've subpoenaed records from the business accounts, and what we're finding..." "Ms. Hayes, has anyone else in your family mentioned identity issues?" "No. Why?" "Because yours isn't the only name being misused. We're finding applications with information belonging to elderly relatives, deceased family members, even neighbors. This appears to be a much larger fraud scheme than just targeting you." The scope kept expanding. What started as Dale wanting my FAFSA PIN had revealed an entire criminal enterprise running out of my childhood home. A week after filing the federal complaint, I got the call I'd been expecting. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. "Nora, honey, what's going on?" "Your mother called me crying, saying you're trying to destroy the family. Something about FBI agents showing up at the house." "Did she tell you why the FBI came, Aunt Pat?" "Something about a misunderstanding with financial aid. She wasn't clear." I took a deep breath. Dale and Mom have been stealing my identity, forging my signature, opening accounts in my name, running a business using my information without my knowledge. That's why the FBI is involved. Silence. Then, "That's a serious accusation. Nora." "It's not an accusation. It's documented fact. I have boxes of evidence, forged signatures, fraudulent accounts, false business filings. They threw me out of the house when I wouldn't give them my FAFSA PIN, and then tried to hack into my school accounts anyway." But they're your parents." "Dale's not my parent, and Mom stopped being one the moment she chose his schemes over my safety." The call ended with Aunt Patricia promising to look into it, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. The family narrative was already being written. Ungrateful daughter turns on parents who sacrificed everything for her. Let them think that I had truth and evidence on my side. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Chen from the bank called with urgent news. "Ms. Hayes, I'm not supposed to share ongoing investigation details, but given the circumstances, we've been conducting an internal audit based on your fraud report. We found something significant." "What kind of significant?" "Your mother has been depositing checks made out to N. Hayes into her personal account, business checks from Whitaker Home Solutions, over $30,000 in the last 6 months. $30,000 in my name. The checks are made out to N. Hayes, but endorsed with a signature that our experts confirm is forged. She's been cashing checks in your name and keeping the money." This was it, the smoking gun. Not just attempted fraud, but completed theft, documented and traceable. "Can you send me that documentation?" "I'll have to go through proper channels. But yes, our legal department will coordinate with the FBI. But I wanted you to know this isn't just attempted anymore. They've been actively stealing from you." I hung up feeling vindicated and violated in equal measure. $30,000. While I'd been scraping by, eating ramen and picking up extra shifts, they'd been stealing money earned in my name. That's why they were so desperate for the FAFSA PIN. I told Evan, "They've been running this scheme for months, but something must have gone wrong. Maybe they needed to show more income, prove I was really part of the business. The financial aid information would have given them everything: social security number verification, income statements, proof of enrollment. Or maybe they were planning to take out student loans in your name, Evan suggested. Use your enrollment status to qualify for money they'd never have to pay back because you'd be on the hook for it. Both scenarios were plausible. Both were terrifying. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove past the house again, alone this time, needing to see the place that had been home for so many years. The lights were on. Dale's truck in the driveway, my mother's car beside it. Normal suburban life, hiding a criminal enterprise. As I sat there, engine idling, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "I see you out there," my mother said. "Are you happy now the FBI came? Took boxes of papers? Scared the neighbors? Your stepfather can't work because his accounts are frozen." "Good," I said. "How can you be so cruel? We fed you, housed you, supported you. You stole from me. You forged my signature. You tried to ruin my credit and destroy my future. That's not support. Mom, that's abuse. We were desperate: the house payment, the business overhead, your stepfather's medical bills. That's not my responsibility. I'm not your personal piggy bank. Family helps family. Nora, family doesn't throw family downstairs. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal $30,000. Silence. Then how did you know about the money? 'Cause unlike you, some people still have integrity. Your fraud is documented. Every check, every deposit, every forged signature. You don't understand what you've done," she said, her voice turning cold. "When this comes out, when Dale goes to prison, what do you think happens to me? I'll lose everything." "You should have thought of that before you became his accomplice. I'm your mother." "No," I said quietly. "You were my mother. Now you're just another criminal who thought I was too weak to fight back." I hung up and drove away, not looking back. That was the last time I'd ever go near that house. The legal machinery ground forward with relentless precision. Subpoenas were served. Accounts were frozen. The investigation expanded as more victims were discovered: elderly neighbors who'd hired Whitaker Home Solutions and mysteriously ended up with liens on their property. Former employees whose tax information had been used to open credit lines. But Dale wasn't going down without a fight. A week after my mother's call, I was served with papers at work. Dale was suing me for defamation, claiming I'd made false accusations that destroyed his business. His lawyer, somehow, was a shark from the state capitol, far more expensive than anything Dale should have been able to afford. "This is intimidation," Agent Rivera assured me when I called in a panic. "It's common in fraud cases. They're trying to pressure you into dropping charges." Can they win? Not a chance. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and we have mountains of evidence, but you'll need representation. Evan helped me find a lawyer through Legal Aid Maria Gutierrez, a former prosecutor who specialized in financial fraud cases. She took one look at my documentation and smiled like a shark. "They're suing you when we have evidence of forgery, fraud, and identity theft. This is what we call a strategic mistake." "What do you mean?" "Discovery goes both ways. By suing you, they've opened themselves up to having to provide all their financial records, communications, everything. They've basically handed us the keys to their entire operation." She was right. Within days of responding to the lawsuit, we were buried in documents Dale's lawyer was forced to provide. Business records showing systematic fraud, email chains discussing how to leverage N's information, even a spreadsheet tracking forged signatures and which banks had accepted them. "He documented his own crimes," Maria said, amazed. "This is like a fraudster's diary." But the most damning evidence came from my mother's emails. Hundreds of messages between her and Dale, planning their schemes, celebrating successful forgeries, strategizing how to get around my refusal to cooperate. One email, dated the night of the assault, made my blood run cold. "She still won't give up the PIN. Time for Plan B. Make sure the router logs are clear after you try. If she reports anything, We'll say she's having another episode like in college. Another episode. I'd never had any episodes. But reading further, I found references to a hospitalization during my sophomore year for appendicitis. They'd been planning to twist my medical history into a narrative of mental instability. This shows clear premeditation, Maria said. They didn't just commit fraud, they planned how to discredit you if you fought back. The trial date was set for 3 months out, but the criminal investigation was moving faster. Agent Rivera called with updates regularly, each one more shocking than the last. We've identified 17 victims so far, she told me. Total losses approaching $500,000. Your case is actually one of the smaller amounts, but it's the most thoroughly documented. You're going to be our key witness. 17 victims. I felt sick. How long has this been going on? Based on the records, at least 3 years, maybe longer. Your stepfather was smart about it, small amounts from lots of sources rather than one big score. If you hadn't fought back and created this paper trail, it might have gone on indefinitely. The weight of that settled on my shoulders. How many elderly neighbors had lost their homes? How many former employees were dealing with destroyed credit, all because I'd finally said no to giving up my FAFSA PIN? As winter settled over Belridge, the investigation intensified. FBI agents interviewed dozens of witnesses. Local news picked up the story. Local business owner accused of massive fraud scheme. Dale's mugshot was on the evening news, followed by my mother's as she was arrested as a co-conspirator. I watched from Evan's apartment, feeling nothing. The woman on the screen looked older than I remembered, her face haggard, her eyes hollow, but I couldn't find sympathy for someone who'd chosen crime over her own daughter. My coworkers were supportive, if awkward. My supervisor at Northline had received enough crazy emails from my family to understand the situation. Some of my aunts and uncles reached out, torn between family loyalty and horror at what had been revealed. I responded to none of them. Blood might be thicker than water, but fraud was thicker than both. The defamation lawsuit collapsed quickly once Maria started deposing witnesses. Dale's expensive lawyer paid for, we discovered, with a fraudulent loan using my cousin's information, withdrew from the case. Dale tried to represent himself for a while, filing rambling motions that were quickly dismissed. But the real victory came from an unexpected source, the IRS. They haven't been paying taxes on the fraudulent income, Agent Rivera explained. They've been filing returns showing losses while depositing hundreds of thousands in stolen money. Tax fraud on top of wire fraud, mail fraud, and identity theft. The charges kept stacking up. What had started as a family dispute over a FAFSA PIN had become a federal case with potential decades of prison time. 3 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse in Columbus, waiting to testify. I'd bought a new suit for the occasion, nothing fancy, but professional. My own money, my own choice. Evan sat in the gallery, a steady presence in the storm. When they called my name, I walked to the witness stand with my head high. Dale sat at the defense table, looking smaller than I remembered. My mother was being tried separately, but I could feel her absence like a missing tooth. The prosecutor walked me through the evidence methodically, the FAFSA attempt, the forged signatures, the business fraud, the systematic theft of my identity. I answered clearly, calmly, letting the documents speak for themselves. Ms. Hayes, the prosecutor asked, why did you finally decide to report these crimes? I looked directly at Dale as I answered, because I realized that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect and trust, and anyone who would throw you downstairs and steal your future isn't family at all. Dale's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, ungrateful, mentally unstable, but the evidence was overwhelming. 17 victims testified after me, each with their own story of trust betrayed, money stolen, lives disrupted. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Dale's sentencing was a month later, 15 years federal prison, plus restitution to all victims. The judge called it one of the most egregious cases of family financial fraud he'd ever seen. My mother's trial was quieter, but no less devastating. Her lawyer argued she'd been manipulated, controlled, forced to participate, but those emails, those deposits, that cold dismissal of me on the porch, they painted a picture of willing participation. 8 years. She got 8 years. After the sentencing, she tried to catch my eye as they led her away. I looked straight through her. She'd made her choice that night on the porch. Now she got to live with it. The restitution process was complex, but eventually, I received a check for $42,000. The $30,000 stolen in my name, plus damages. It wasn't about the money, though that certainly helped. It was about justice, about proving that I wasn't the weak, compliant victim they'd thought I was. I used some of the money to finish my degree, graduating with honors. Northline Systems promoted me to senior technician, recognizing the strength I'd shown through the ordeal. Evan and I grew closer, the trauma bonding us in unexpected ways. But the best moment came 6 months after the trial. A letter from Beacon State University, forwarded from my old address. Dear Ms. Hayes, we're pleased to inform you that your financial aid status has been fully verified and restored. Your account shows no unauthorized access attempts in the past 180 days. Your privacy and security remain our top priority. I sat in my new apartment, small but mine, and laughed until I cried. All of this, every bit of it, had started with a simple refusal to share a PIN. Dale had torn apart our family, destroyed his life and my mother's, victimized 17 people, all because I wouldn't give him access to my student loans. The FAFSA PIN itself was just a string of numbers, changed multiple times now for security, but what it represented, my independence, my future, my refusal to be used, that was everything. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My heart rate spiked for a moment before I read it. Ms. Hayes, this is Grace Morrison from the Tribune. I'm writing a series on family financial fraud and would love to interview you about your experience. Your case has helped change how banks verify signatures. Would you be willing to share your story? I thought about it. Thought about other young people trapped in similar situations, told that family means letting yourself be used, abused, stolen from. Thought about the 17 victims who'd found justice because I'd refused to stay silent. Yes, I typed back. I'll share my story, every bit of it. Because silence is what lets predators thrive. Silence is what enables fraud to flourish in suburban houses behind closed doors. Silence is what nearly cost me my future. But I wasn't silent anymore. I'd found my voice that night on the porch. Bloodied but not broken. And I'd use it to make sure no one else had to learn the hard way that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. The article ran 2 weeks later. Front page of the Sunday edition. The FAFSA PIN that exposed a crime ring. My picture next to it, standing in front of the federal courthouse. Not a victim, a survivor. Dale would serve his full sentence, no early release for financial crimes. My mother might get out in 5 with good behavior, but she'd never be part of my life again. The relatives who'd doubted me had gone quiet when the evidence came out. The ones who'd supported me had become closer than ever. And me, I graduated summa cum laude, got promoted to IT manager at a new company, started dating someone who understood that trust was earned, not demanded, built a life that was entirely, authentically mine. All because I'd kept one thing to myself, a simple PIN number that turned out to be worth more than $30,000. It was worth my freedom. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd just given Dale what he wanted that night. Would the fraud have stopped? Would they have been satisfied with just my FAFSA access? But I know the answer. It never would have been enough. People who view you as a resource rather than a person always want more. Today the PIN, tomorrow the bank account, next week your entire identity. The bruises faded, the credit was repaired, the money was recovered, but the lesson remains sharp as ever. When someone shows you who they are through actions, not words, believe them. And when they throw you down the stairs for refusing to submit to their schemes, that's when you pick yourself up, gather your evidence, and bring the entire weight of justice crashing down on their heads. My name is Nora Hayes. I kept my FAFSA PIN to myself, and that small act of defiance saved my life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're listening to this. Sharing our experiences helps us connect and realize we're not alone in dealing with family betrayal and financial abuse. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And if you really want to help others discover stories like mine, hit that hype button. It makes a huge difference in getting these important stories heard by people who might need them. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. Stay strong, everyone.